Everyone, and welcome to another episode of On the Victory Homefront. If you're new here, hello. My name is Jamie, and I'm happy that you joined us for this episode. If you have been following along, thank you. I appreciate you so much. As I try to figure out what exactly I'm doing with this podcast, where I'm going, and to join me on my journey as I try to bring in the 1940s into my everyday life. So I have been doing a lot of brainstorming on where I actually want to go with this podcast. There is so much information out there of the World War II years here in America, and there seems to be more coming up about the home front, which is where my passion lies. And so I'm thinking, am I just going to be another one of those voices, just giving you information that's already out there? Or do I want to make this into something a little bit more and bring it into more who I am, I guess, and where my passion lies. And my passion lies not just in teaching about the World War II home front here in America, but also I can see bridges between then and now. And so I think I want to play on that for a bit. And we'll see where this goes with this podcast. But I've got so many ideas still. But my ideas come from what I am dealing with in my everyday. And so that's where my ideas for certain episodes come in. And today is no different. And I'm really going to try to make this weekly. I'm working on putting away time at the beginning of each week. I'm hoping on Monday, but today is Tuesday, so that didn't happen this week, to do an episode and to have it out hopefully within the next day or two, because sometimes what I'm talking about and what is inspiring me is happening in the now, and I want to get it out to where it is still relevant and people may want to listen to it. And I have a habit of recording things a little late. I hadn't actually worked on an episode for Valentine's Day, and it wasn't going to get out until after Valentine's Day, and who was going to want to listen to it? It's after Valentine's Day. You would want to listen to it beforehand or while it was going on. So this is something I'm working on, and so I'm going to do my best. But I do need to talk about things as they come about in my life. That's when I'm passionate. That's when I can talk about it. That's when all these ideas and my brain is working to get this out to you. So today I actually had planned to talk about something different, but because of something that's going on, I am going to talk about something else. Now, I am going to do a disclaimer, and I'm probably going to have to do this now for any time I'm making comparisons from then and now. And comparison is the wrong word. I'm bridging similar things that were happening in the past during the World War II years, and I'm bridging it to something that's going on now in ways of maybe how we can look at it differently or how we can handle it, or maybe, I don't know, I just find it interesting. So just because I'm talking about it does not mean that's what I think is happening, that's how I feel is happening, that's where I land on it. No, I'm just going to talk about it. Obviously, I have my own opinions on things, but those are my opinions, those are my feelings, and I'm going to most likely just keep that within. I think I'm pretty decent at that, but I am just talking about things that I am hearing or seeing and trying to bridge similarities. But obviously that was then and this is now, and there's really, when you get down to it, the comparison is very small. But I do think that there's similarities. And why is it similarities and not comparison? Because that was a different time. That was a different mindset. That was different things happening. It's just different so than it is now. But it doesn't mean that similar things couldn't be happening. But we're definitely going to respond to it differently than they did back then, regardless. So, and while I'm talking, you might see me play with things because in the spirit of the 1940s World War II home front, I am making do and mending one of my husband's pair of jeans. So I do notice that when I have something to play with in my hands, it kind of helps me stay on task. So this just might be a little fidget thing for me today. So what are we going to talk about, Jamie? Well, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about propaganda today. And why am I talking about propaganda today? Because of something I saw in the news. And no, it's not anything political. It was a description on every time I was seeing it, I was like, that's so funny that they're using those words. So we just had this big nor'easter snowstorm hit our northeast portion of our country. And where I'm at, I did get a little snow. I am still seeing some flakes flying around out there, but nothing that like New York got, Boston got, anything along those lines. So we did get a few inches, but we are still very, very functional, very good. But I found it interesting on how we describe our storms these days. And it's not just this year. It's been happening, I don't know, I feel like the first time I noticed it was in 2021. And we were in Texas. It was February, literally 5 years ago this month. And Texas had that horrible snowstorm and cold temperatures. And it was nicknamed Snowmageddon. And so there's all these crazy names that we are now naming all of our storms. And I understand why, because of propaganda. Now, propaganda doesn't always have to be political. It's sometimes used so that you can get a point across. You can get urgency across. So this one was, what was it? A bomb cyclone blizzard. It's no longer just a blizzard. It's a bomb cyclone blizzard. So every time I was seeing that, I couldn't help but giggle just a little bit. I'm not giggling at the severity of the storm because the storm was serious. And by putting those names on it, putting that label, people were really going to listen. They were going to take this storm seriously. That was the point. That's the point of propaganda, is to get something across, to make it, maybe it's moral or safety or even political, anything along those lines. That's what propaganda is for. It's to get something across. And it can get across for, again, like safety purposes, like this blizzard was, or to get people on your side. And propaganda was huge during World War II. It is still huge today when you recognize it. It is everywhere. So let's go ahead and dive back to World War II and the reasons why propaganda was so important. Propaganda was used for multiple reasons, both on the military side and on the Homefront side. Both on all sides, too, of the war. For the Axis, they had their own propaganda. The Allies, we had our own propaganda. It was crucial to have the countries behind whatever country it is for the war purpose, to survive, to have the support, to have the manpower, to have the weapons, to win, for victory. It was all across the board. Propaganda is huge when it comes to a country, when it comes to a mindset, when it comes to anything along those lines. So one of the things that propaganda really played a role in during World War II was recruitment and military enlistment. There was propaganda everywhere. Sign up now, defeat the enemy, all those things. Remember Pearl Harbor, that slogan was propaganda. It was important to get the boys to sign up, the boys and the men. Let's be honest, they were mostly boys, to sign up and fight for their country. War bond campaigns, that was another thing. Go and support the war. They needed the funds. They needed the money for weaponry, for food, for everything. War bond campaigns, propaganda, all across the board. Now, I'm not saying either of these are good or bad. This is just propaganda. That's what we're talking about, okay? Rationing and resource conservation. That was huge. I mean, right now, I am literally planning my victory garden. Victory gardens, propaganda, get it out there. It's info, get it out there. We need everybody to do this. We need everybody to be on board. Propaganda, be on board. Grow your own food. We're going to need it. Another way that they used propaganda was demonization of the enemy. And you would see that in like the cartoon characters, right? We even saw that in Disney cartoons where Donald Duck against the Axis powers, and they really put them in a box, right? We know what we're talking about. I don't have to like focus on that, but that was important too. It was a way to demonize the enemy. They were the enemy. And so propaganda was all across the board from adults to children to get them on board. They are the enemy and we are the good guys. National unity. That was another propaganda to have everybody we're in it together. We're in it for the duration. It was important. Can you imagine the lack of support the war ever would have had without this propaganda? It was crucial. Every slogan that you see from World War II was propaganda. Victory V, propaganda. V for victory. We're going to win. We're doing this for the red, white, and blue. We're doing this for the Allies. It was vital to get everybody in support of what needed to be done. But then you look at it in another way. There was propaganda that came into censorship and information control. They withheld numbers early on in the war, casualty numbers, because that was going to hurt their recruitment and their military enlistment. So things were withheld also with propaganda. That was withheld. They would censor, exactly what was going on in the battles. And sometimes it was censored beforehand for safety purposes. They couldn't let information out there because the enemy was listening. Loose lips sink ships. So it was all across the board in so many areas. Propaganda plays a role. It plays a role in unity. It plays a role in everybody being behind an idea or a movement. Propaganda all across the board still plays today. And I know you could look for it in different areas. I'm just going to focus on the weather. So another way is psychological warfare. Propaganda was used, such as in dropping leaflets over enemy lines. That was a way. Or even leaflets were distributed in Nazi Germany itself by the underground. The French resistance in France was also doing like leaflets or trying to get information out there. It was their propaganda. Join us, help us. And also radio broadcasts. Radio broadcasts also have propaganda. We would intercept enemy radio broadcasts and you could hear them. They're like, we're doing right. We're winning the war. We've done this. We've done that. And is it true? Not necessarily. It's not necessarily true. That's what they're saying to get people behind them, to get that belief. We're winning. We're the ones on the right. So propaganda, again, it's crazy. Gender role messaging. That was also used. You can see Rosie the Riveter. We can do it. Guys, that's propaganda. That was to get women to go to work in the factories. Not that we wouldn't, but boy, did we feel good doing it, right? Because that information was out there. This is you're doing your bit. You're helping the boys, and you're darn right we did. And again, propaganda it can be used for bad, just like anything, but it gets you behind a purpose. It gets you in a mentality that's needed for whatever is going on in the world. You can also use it like moral framing of the war during World War II, good versus evil, the four freedoms. If you've not seen the four freedoms, we are definitely going to discuss that in future podcasts. That was also a propaganda to help you know what you're fighting for in this country, what is worth preserving, what is worth being selfless and putting yourself out there to help win the war versus evil. So today, you can still see propaganda all across the news. There are things being withheld. There are certain parts of the story being told. There are certain sides of a story being told. There are opinions being shared. It's propaganda. And the fact that I couldn't help but giggle at the description of this nor'easter blizzard, this bomb cyclone blizzard. It's just fascinating to me because I go right into that idea of propaganda because I've always been fascinated with propaganda with World War II. And I think once you notice these things in the past, you're able to go, I see that. I can see that. So it's fascinating. And I encourage you to check out some of those posters of World War II propaganda and to understand the message behind it and why they did those specific propaganda pieces. I would say the majority of propaganda for World War II was to help us, obviously, towards victory. I mean, 100%, not the majority of it, all of it was for victory. So now that we talked about that, I'm just going to give you a little update with what's going on my victory home front, because that was one of the main reasons I started this podcast. And today we are focusing on the Victory Garden. And I will be talking about this a lot because Victory Gardens played such a crucial role during World War II on the home front, not just here in America, but over in our allies too, over in the UK. That's why you would see the Women's Land Army. It was huge. It was vital. And I don't think that Victory Gardens get enough credit. So, or those that worked the farmland, excuse me. And so I am working on my Victory Garden. And I know I already talked about it, but I'm actually doing some planting today. And to give you an idea on where I'm at, I purchased seeds from 3 different locations because I couldn't find certain seeds that I needed for our particular Victory Garden this year. And the irony is that when Victory Gardens became very talked about and encouraged in World War II, which would have started in March 1942. That's when it was warming up. It was the first springtime since we joined the war. And so Victory Gardens were right in the forefront by March. The OPA was getting it out there, and we'll talk about more about them later. Other programs were really getting out Victory Gardens. And so the funny thing is that I told you I had to go to 3 different locations to get the seeds that I needed. Well, in 1942, when everybody really ramped up to get ready for the duration, for the war. I mean, we all hoped it was going to be over soon, but we really didn't know. Seed companies like Burpees could not keep up with the demand of seeds. So that's in its irony. Again, I tell you, I notice things that are going on now in my life, and I can see similarities of it during World War II. And so that makes me want to talk about it. So the first seeds I went and I got at Home Depot, right? Yes. Got it at Home Depot, and I got the first batch of seeds that I was able to get there. Now, I wasn't able to get all of them at Home Depot, not for the specific kinds that I was looking for, and I'm big on organic and heirloom, and I will explain why in a minute. So then my next stop was our friendly neighborhood Walmart, and I was able to get more dirt, and I was able to get more seeds. So there I was able to, and I got plant labels. There I was able to get more of the seeds I was looking for. Seeds I couldn't find at Home Depot, such as pole beans. I did not want bush beans. I specifically wanted pole beans because it will save me some space on the way that I am doing our garden. And I am going to show you all photos, and I will have video as soon as I figure that all out as the garden grows and when we don't have snow on the ground. So I was also able to get sweet peppers, which is something I was having a very hard time finding, and something I actually have to plant right now. I am late. I probably should have planted these last week indoors, but I am going to plant them now. Now, in World War II, did they start them indoors? I'm sure that there were garden centers or greenhouses that were starting them indoors, but most people had to wait until it was warm outside. I'm starting mine indoors because I can. And so I was able to get 1 tomato, but that was it. So again, I had to go to a 3rd location, and it is my favorite place to get seeds. And no, they are not paying me. I am just very straightforward, honest, and an open book. And that is from a company called Seeds Now. I love Seeds Now. There they are. I can't reverse it, sorry. Check them out if you're looking for heirloom and organic seeds. So why do you want heirloom? Well, I just said how during World War II, seed companies couldn't keep up. So seed saving was something that home gardeners who have victory gardens could do to have a harvest the following year. Now, I have not found any information on seed saving during World War II, but for those that were generational gardeners, they probably already did that. An heirloom, you can save your seeds. So it was another way to make do and mend, to stretch your resources, and to have what you need to survive the war or to help the war effort with food. And so saving your seeds was crucial. Why heirloom and not anything else? So I actually got a book, and I'm not going to name the company because I don't want to diss anybody, but a company had sent me one of their seed books. And there was another one too, not far from me, actually. And I was so tempted to go more to a local place to get my seeds, but they are F1 seeds. F1 seeds, see, this is where it gets tricky. So F1 seeds are kind of like the offspring of two different plants that can usually grow faster. They can produce more fruit or vegetables, and they are more resistant to disease. So if you're looking for something for quick gardens to have a lot of food at one time, then F1 would be the way to go. That would probably be the way to go during World War II. Now, I'm not saying they had F1 seeds at that time. I do know that there was a lot of studies in the 60s of doing two plants together. I don't know if it was happening during World War II years. If you know, I would love for you to share with that in a comment below. F1 seeds, if you need food really quick, right away, like large abundance of food, F1 is the way to go. But you can't save the seeds. So you would have to purchase all your seeds the following year. And if you were during World War II, seed companies were already stretched and they couldn't keep up with the demand, which meant there were a lot of victory gardens that weren't what the person would have wanted. And so if you go with heirloom seeds, you can save your seeds. And something I did purposely to save seeds is I bought more carrots, because carrots don't go to seeds for 2 years. So something I'm learning as I go forward in this idea of growing our victory garden to have food on our shelves. So it's been a fascinating journey, and the things that I'm learning just kind of blows my mind, really. So I did buy more seeds, more carrot seeds. I have probably like 250 carrot seeds right now planted outside. I did winter sowing. I talked about that in an earlier podcast when I did touch on victory gardens, and I just got like another, I think there's like 200 in here that I'm going to try again. And some of them I'm going to plant in a different location, and I'm just going to let them grow for 2 years and go to seed. So then I can have my own carrot seeds. So just something to think about. And this is something that I love sharing as I go about this journey, living like the World War II years, like my grandparents lived during the World War II years, and all the stories that they told me. So that's where I'm at. So today I am planting peppers. I have sweet peppers and I have jalapeno peppers. My husband loves jalapeno peppers. I make a cowboy candy that I can, and he absolutely loves it. So I am definitely going to be planting those, followed by some tomatoes. And I think I will obviously be talking more about the Victory Garden because that is going to be a huge thing in my life for this first year, and I'm going to take you on that journey. I'm going to let you know what I'm learning, let you know where I'm at. And I did contemplate on doing half heirloom seeds and half F1 seeds so I could have some really guaranteed abundance, and then I could have some for seed saving. But then in my head I'm like, but how would I keep separate the heirloom from the F1? And then would the F1 cost for my seeds of my heirloom if they are too close together, because I need pollinators obviously to start the fruit when the flowers are there, and is that going to cause a problem? So I just went heirloom all across the board, and hopefully I get a good harvest this year. So that is what's going on in my home front. I'm looking forward to the snow melting. We had melted for about 4 days before we got this new dusting of snow, and it's all okay. I love snow, but I'm sure looking forward to the spring. So until next time, my friends, I hope to see you in a week because I am really going to work hard to get this podcast weekly. I have, again, so many things to share with you in just the way that I think in terms of those similarities of World War II years to today. I would love for you to join me. If you know anybody else who may enjoy this kind of content, please share with them. I am trying to grow my audience, obviously. It is nicer feeling like I'm talking to a lot of people and not just myself. I'm not saying I'm talking to myself. I have some dedicated listeners, and thank you. Love you. I appreciate you so, so much. But I would love to be able to, grow. So anyway, until next time, my friends, stay warm, stay safe, and be a light in this world. Whatever you do, just don't forget that you are a part of victory, whatever that looks like for you, because victory, my friends, is in the everyday.